It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Slashers in Sync. I cannot wait to discuss the movie that we just recently watched, but joining me as always is my beautiful co-host, Marvelous.
Hi.
She does not take compliments very well at all.
No, I don't.
We're trying to get her there though.
Yeah, same goes with MJ, so please by all means throw the compliments in his direction too.
Don't do that.
Yes, do.
But before we jump into, you guys read the title of this episode. We're going to be reviewing Imaginary. But before we get into that, make sure to travel on over to our Instagram page and check out our quick impressions of The Seeding. We didn't really think that film needed a full review. Nope. So we just kind of gave our quick impressions of it and what we thought of it. So go check that out. Go follow our Instagram. We'll keep you updated on everything. Plus, we follow a lot of horror stuff, so if you're into that, we can direct you to a lot of cool horror merch, meetups, and stuff like that. So go check us out over there. Also, I recently, transitioned my TikTok into the official Slashers in Sync page. So we have a TikTok now.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check that out. Doing some fun little videos over there, just nothing too crazy, no full in-depth reviews, but just cool stuff that I think you guys would like a lot.
Cute little memes and whatnot.
Yeah, little short horror stuff. So go check that stuff out. Links will be in the description as always. So we're trying to branch out. We really want to create this Slashers in Sync brand, and obviously seeing the fact that we have a consistent amount of people that listen to us, even if it's just 10, we can, thank you so much. We didn't think we would have not even one person, but 10.
I didn't think anybody would listen to us, and all honesty, just sit around and ramble.
The fact that my friends hit me up saying they're waiting for an episode, it's just okay, we have to do it then. We have to. So again, thank you to everyone listening. Obviously,
thanks,
I can congratulate my friends in person, but when it comes to you guys, thank you again. We'll keep you updated on if we ever go to any horror stuff as well, because we would love to meet up with y'all. Yes. I think the Terror Market has something coming up later this year.
I think so.
In November, around that time.
Usually, because we missed the one that happens during the springtime. They usually do it during Halloween, which is
right after October of right.
Well, right after Halloween itself. But in June or usually in May, they usually try and hit it on the 31st of May, because that's literally halfway to Halloween, so Halloween.
Yeah.
But we missed it because of scheduling conflicts. So
yeah.
Unfortunately, we couldn't go. If you guys don't know what the Terror Market is, I guess this is a quick little plug-in. It's a free event where it takes place in Burbank. It's around a museum called Mystic Museum. It's
also fun to check out if
Definitely.
you haven't.
That entire street, in all honesty, me and MJ will sit around and kind of joke around and say, oh, it's our portal to Halloween town, because the whole street is covered in horror merch or Halloween merch or Halloween decor. And ironically enough, on that very same street, it looks like a Gothic church. It's structured churches out there too.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits the vibe, and I think all the restaurants feed into it as well. You see some cute little small Halloween decorations that are there year round. So if you need a quick dose of Halloween, highly recommend going to the Mystic Museum.
Even the coffee shops kind of know their demographic, because they got little Halloween stickers on the window.
Definitely.
So they know who shows up there.
There's even a Goodwill though, bro. And even the Goodwill advertise that they have costumes there all year round. So please, by all means, go to the Mystic Museum, walk down that street. I don't remember exactly what the street is called, but in that same neighborhood, there is an event that occurs twice a year called the Terror Market, where a bunch of small businesses, I guess, gather.
Vendors and
vendors.
Stuff, yeah.
People that you would see at the Halloween events or horror events, cons, I mean. So things like Creepy Con or
Midsummer Scream, yeah.
And things along those lines. They go to the Terror Market, but surprisingly enough, it's completely free. The only money you need to spend is the money, what you want to drop on the vendors.
And if you think we know a lot, we really don't. There's a
No.
huge horror community. There's things all year round, hauntings,
Yep.
sessions,
Yep.
like different meetups. Like we don't even know half of it. We're barely getting into this ourselves.
Yeah.
But if you go over to Slash and Sync on TikTok, a link will be down below in the description. I think I have quick little videos covering like Mystic Museum, like our first few times that we went, and I think the very first terror market we went to back in 21 or 22.
I think so. Because I think around that time you and I were like really obsessed with horror.
We did Roast the Dead as well.
We did Roast the Dead. We did Rad Coffee.
Yeah. So those are all cool things that you can check out. The addresses are in those videos as well. And if you just look at our Instagram page, you can go through our following and you'll see all the accounts that we follow. But nonetheless, sorry, we didn't want to bombard you with that.
Just in case you guys are as big of horror fanatics as we are. I mean, I figure you are.
If you're on this.
If you're on this, I mean, outside of my friend group and the certain select people that I know who don't do horror or don't consume horror. A lot of these spots are in California, though. Just full disclaimer, and I apologize for that if you don't live in California. I tried posting about things like in Florida or in Texas whenever I see it. But
we're just one state. I can't imagine everywhere else where they just do these things. This horror has been huge.
It's gotten big, and you and I have talked about it. I feel like it really exploded 2020 and onward. Like prior to 2020, if you were into horror, you were a bit of a weirdo. But now it seems to be very mainstream, so I like it. Just like most things. You were weirdo at first, and you're considered a trendsetter later.
So Imaginary, that released March 8th, 2024. So just a few months ago, or a couple
3 months ago.
Yeah, a few months ago. Yeah, I was right. So that released, and we missed it in theaters. We also missed Immaculate as well.
We did.
So we'll probably be renting or purchasing that soon so we can check it out and review it. But we went ahead and rented Imaginary first. Now, right off the bat, I'm gonna just go ahead and say this: if you haven't seen this, I don't think you should spend money on it. You should probably maybe just wait for it to hit streaming at some point.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth you dropping even $6 on if you want to rent it off like Apple TV or
maybe like $2, but even then I would say it's pushing it. Like, not to say it was a bad film, but it's not something that's pushing the boundaries.
It's definitely not on the level of like Talk to Me or like First Omen or anything like that. I'll say this, if you're hosting a get together and you want to split it with your homegirls or whatever, or like your homies, like okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, maybe like $6, $1 a person if you want to do that, like Zelda or something. Like that's cool. But I just don't think it's really worth you going out of your way to really see this alone. Like it's just wait for it to hit streaming if you're gonna watch it on your own and whatever. But essentially, the film was directed by, I believe, Jeff Wadlow. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm completely sorry. The cast stars DeWanda Wise as Jessica, Tegan Burns as Taylor, the oldest daughter, Piper Braun as the youngest daughter Alice, and Tom Payne as the husband/father Max. Now, Tom Payne is also where you guys might remember Jesus from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see him in this, but he doesn't play too big of a role. So really, no, he's a really good actor. You didn't really see it in this because he was only on screen for like 10 minutes.
6 minutes, I was gonna say, less than 10, but more than 5.
So not really much to go on there, but that was cool. For you guys who don't know Imaginary, the synopsis of this real quick is when Jessica moves back into her childhood home with her family, her youngest stepdaughter Alice finds a stuffed bear. As Alice's behavior becomes more and more concerning, Jessica intervenes only to realize that the bear, it's much more than she believed him to be. So it comes off like your typical like possession, like haunting type film, if you will.
Yeah.
That's not exactly what this is, even though they do kind of bring in like different religions and ideologies later in the film, but we'll get into that in a second on what I guess the stuffed bear actually is, or I guess we could just refer to him as Chauncey, as that's the name.
Or CB.
Or CB, if you will. But nonetheless, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Marva so she can kind of discuss the opening.
So the movie starts off on like, I want to say on a high note.
Yeah, it was a really good opening.
Definitely. I was excited. I mean, we watched the trailer before renting the movie, and I think you and I were pretty hyped up for it. I have a friend who later on became a mutual of ours who also hyped up this film a lot. So expectations were high walking in. Not to say like I feel as if that is the reason why MJ and I aren't like ecstatic about the movie. It's just as time progressed, there was a lot of things that I feel like didn't necessarily have to be there or were just a little too predictable when they were there. But you and I have also consumed a lot of horror, so there's that. But essentially, it opens up with
Kind of either a flashback or a dream or something.
It's kind of like a dream, like haze. The camera doesn't really seem to be focusing on anything.
Right.
But you see this woman just running through the rooms, panicking, and then the spider figure like running right behind her. This girl is desperately trying to like find a door that'll help her escape, but the more she tries, the more desperate she becomes. And then all of a sudden, she wakes up, and you come to find out that it was a terrifying dream. This
figure was something else, bro.
Definitely. You come to find out as the movie kept progressing that this figure, this dreamlike spider, that this woman, the main character Jessica, ends up, I guess, like obsessing over. She consciously or subconsciously creates like a child story about like her and the spider when it's not really like her because she disguises herself as a bug and then the spider as a spider herself.
It's like Simon something,
or it's like Millie the millipede and like Simon the spider. It's cute. It's really cute. But essentially, like, long story short, the beginning of the movie was really, really nice. The opening scene was really nice because everything is kind of hazy. You feel like you're in the dream, and then you see these like 8 glowing red eyes and like all this gray and blue, and it comes close to you. Once Jessica wakes up, she like looks over to her partner, and her partner asks about like whether or not she had another night terror or nightmare, which allows the audience to realize that this is something that's rather common. Her partner then says something along the lines of how they're going to be moving tomorrow and how moving may help, which I didn't read the synopsis of the movie, so I didn't know what the fuck was going on. But when Jessica agreed, that's when you see that the next day they're moving into her old childhood home.
Very interesting to note that no matter what happened, they were going to move there regardless.
Exactly.
Because usually most movies create a crutch for you to get you to that, like get you to point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like the night terror made
No.
Max say, yeah, let's move. It's like they were already gonna do it regardless.
They're already in the process because
like they were gonna fuck no matter what.
Essentially, because as the movie plays on, you come to find out that Jessica's father has had this like mental illness since she was very young, and as he got older, the worse it became. He now lives in a nursing home, which is why Jessica is taking over her old childhood home. As her and her family, or I guess her step family, are moving into her old childhood home, they're like starting, or Jessica,
they're like picking rooms or something.
They're picking rooms, and Jessica is slowly starting to uncover like her history that she doesn't quite remember. So she walks into her old room, sees how like the walls are being painted or were painted by herself. She even offers Alice the room to her, and Alice says yes, but Taylor walks in and tells Alice to go somewhere else, and this is where Jessica is like kind of left alone in her room, in her old room with all her paintings and her drawings. You can't really tell what it is because there's like a light layer of paint on it.
Like it was covered up,
slightly,
or then it wore off the cover up, or
primer or something along those lines was on there. But the marker and the paint that she used as a kid was like bleeding through.
This was interesting because you kind of glossed over the when they were picking room section.
Mm-hmm.
When Taylor, the oldest daughter, came in, she does not like Jessica.
No.
At all. And I had written down in my notes, but I guess I had erased it, that it's interesting how they kind of flipped it, because usually in these movies and in these cases, the story is like the dad is usually the one who can't get along with the daughter. And for obvious reasons, it's, as a young woman, like trusting an older male who you have no idea who that is, and then all of a sudden they're like now thrusted into your lives. Like it's hard to deal with that. So I totally get that, and I understand why movies constantly use it, but they flipped it, and this time it's the stepmother who can't get along with the oldest daughter, and I thought that was like an interesting little flip. It's nothing like groundbreaking. I just thought it did catch me kind of off guard, because she kind of like she buried her quick, man. Like
Taylor, yeah,
like don't use that nickname. Like, yeah, who the fuck you think you are? You know, what I mean?
essentially, and like
So-
throwing her bitchy texts or like side glances every now and then, or like, mind you, Jessica doesn't say anything. She takes it on the chin. Like earlier on in the movie, she even tells her husband that, like, I'm really trying to make sure that what Taylor says doesn't get to me.
Right.
That I just kind of like shake it off. She doesn't necessarily fight back against it, but you can tell that it hurts her anytime that Taylor is being like rude or mean to her. But
I guess at this point, after all that stuff happens, this is when Alice and Jessica want to play hide and seek.
yep,
Alice, of course, goes downstairs and in the basement, in like this, I guess, cupboard under the basement or on the side or
it's
something.
like a mini closet inside the basement.
But
It's
so
almost-
many that like you have to like get on all fours and crawl through,
or be a
So-
small child,
or
and
be
get
a
through.
small child. And that's of course where Alice finds the bear, CB, otherwise known as Chauncey. So we don't really have too many notes written for this movie because this film was just kind of like, usually when Marvin and I watch films, we want to go, "Hey, caught that," or "Hey, like, hey, look at that, we predicted it." Hey, what do you know?
Yeah.
We kind of call each other out on things. We kind of even make bets sometimes of what's gonna happen. That didn't really happen with this movie. Like I feel like we were invested, but it's just,
We knew where it was going to, where we didn't
Yeah.
have to talk about it,
and the interest wasn't like too high. So,
but enough to keep us engaged.
but it does pick up once you meet Chauncey.
Yes.
What were your thoughts on how they handled the imaginary friend, and how they went about that compared to like other stuff?
By other stuff, you mean what?
Just other like possession like films or even
Oh, okay.
movies that like deal with like entities, stuff like
Okay,
that.
okay. I just wanted to make sure.
No, you're good. I'm sure they probably wanted to know too.
Essentially, so one thing that you and I both kind of glossed over before we dove into the topic of imaginary friends is the way that Chauncey was introduced. Because while they're playing hide and go seek, Jessica walks out to take a business call, and Alice only goes to the basement because she hears whispering and voices. And she even says, like, "Why are you talking like that? Why are you whispering like that?" Thinking that it's Jessica.
Right.
And whenever she opens that little small cupboard or mini door inside the basement, you see Chauncey sitting there. And Alice makes this comment and says, "Yeah, well, Jessica's forgetful a lot." So without hearing the conversation, Chauncey essentially says that he got there because Jessica forgot him.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
It
Yeah.
was very in the beginning of the movie. So then that's when I felt like it set the tone for the rest of the film.
Right.
I knew that Chauncey was out there messing around with Alice because he wanted to get back at Jessica, or at the very
Which
least,
they
like,
state literally later.
yeah. Like, and it was true. Like, I didn't have to say anything. I watched it unfold step by step. But as Chauncey becomes more integrated in Alice's life, like you said, you kind of see how Alice almost becomes very unhinged. But going back to your question as far as like imaginary friend goes and how they handled it in this movie, I thought it was really interesting because in this movie, in Imaginary, it proposes an idea similar to Annabelle from the Conjuring franchise, if you will, where there is an entity. Sometimes the child can like see the entity or like create an image in their mind of this entity that makes it very appealing to them, be it like a fairy or like a superhero or like Bing Bong, like how Taylor was bringing up from time to time. However they envision it in their mind, they will always see it that way. Or this entity may even use a conduit to speak and communicate and be around their child, if you will. As this entity is like bonding with the child, it is feeding off of the kid's imagination, which is making it like grow more and more, and eventually with a healthy relationship with your imaginary friend, your connection starts to fade away and both of you guys can like move on with the next stage in your life, right?
It's almost like you feed it, and once it's fed, it kind of like,
you both break away, but
Yeah.
slowly. And it was a really, really cool idea. I've heard of imaginary friends being like deities before. I've heard of imaginary friends just like being tricksters. I've heard like anything that involves like, I guess, the spirit world, if you will, or just like spirits in general. And tying it to imaginary friends I've seen. And I've also seen dolls and stuffed animals being used as conduits, be it through Annabelle or like other films. I'm just using Annabelle as a reference because I feel like it's something that almost everybody's watched at some point in time.
I know, not to get too much into your personal life, but I know you studied in psychology.
Mhm.
Did you ever read up on that? Was that ever brought up, or is that kind of just more like a movie thing where like they make it seem like it's a big like event that most children go through?
No, so it is in child development from what I remember. Mind you, I also graduated with a psych degree in 2009, so or 2019, excuse me. So that means that I'm about 5 years out of the loop as
Of
far as
research and stuff.
research and discoveries goes. But back then, when I was younger, before my knees cracked, essentially
Before the arthritis.
yeah, before all the well, no, the issues were there, but before the issues that I have now were there.
Yeah.
They were talking about how children are like known to have imaginary friends, and they were debating on what kind of scientific term to use for imaginary friends in general. I believe this film even like drops it. It's like poscum or like
Paracrism
paracum or something along those lines, where it's like an official term for an imaginary friend.
I asked the question because at some point they bring in like a psychiatrist or a therapist.
They bring a therapist in,
and they heavily talk about like how this is very common. She used the term for it, like Marva said, and
she seems to specialize in children having imaginary friends and having these like healthy or maybe even unhealthy relationships with their imaginary friends, and helps them process through it too, which is why she uses the scientific term for imaginary friends. So it is brought up as far as like psychology goes, and it is part of child development. Not every child really forms an imaginary friend, just like how not everybody has a voice in their head. So it's just dependent on the neural pathways, the development, the creativity, and so on and so forth. But again, just because you didn't have an imaginary friend doesn't mean you're not creative. It just means that like you had creativity in other forms of assets, if you will. I had one for a split second and then they disappeared. But I also moved on and stopped talking to them, so I can see why they disappeared.
I guess it ate, bro.
I guess.
It got what it needed.
Real quick, got a nice little snack and left.
But I did want to say, because like what Marva said about like Alice constantly becoming more unhinged, everything builds up to the therapist getting there.
Definitely.
Like different things whether it was
and
Taylor's...
Alice is on the scavenger hunt, by the way, and sorry to cut you off, which is why I feel like as the movie progresses, she unhinges more, because as she goes down this list, it becomes more and more concerning as to what the meaning behind each phrase means. Because first thing is she needs to find something happy. Second thing is it is a lock of hair. Third thing is something that makes her afraid. And then there is something that makes her hurt, something that'll get her in trouble, and so on and so forth. And you're just kind of watching Alice unfold. And
we mentioned earlier that Jessica is a stepmother. So I guess the real mother and the ex-wife of Max is institutionalized or something. She's very mentally ill. So
she even burned Alice. Where like in the beginning of the movie, Alice seems to be hyperfixated on her scar that her mother gave her.
And that's why I guess she's dealing with trauma in her own way, the same way I guess the oldest daughter, Taylor, is also very bitchy towards Jessica, you know? So they're both dealing with it in their own way. So Alice isn't just like, you know...
happy-go-lucky every day.
She's dealing with something, and the idea of this, I guess, bear, her imaginary friend, taking her on this wonderful vacation and her in this beautiful trip is what's really making her, you know, dive deep into this and like doing everything it says. Yeah. You know, but
she can have everything that she wants.
Like have everything she wants. So
have the happiness that she never thought she could have.
So I thought the twist was cool. I think you predicted this little twist here.
Very easily.
Very easily. And it's the fact that the doctor reveals to Jessica that, hey, like, so what bear are you talking about? And Jessica's like, what do you mean? And then, like, she shows her the video. There's no bear there. So the entire time, Jessica had been seeing this bear, the same as Alice, but nobody else was.
So I have a question for you about that, actually. Because that scene played out after this one particular moment that we also saw in the trailer. The fact that Jessica and her entire family seem to have this douchebag kid of a neighbor. I don't know if he's 15, 16, 17, or 18, however old he is. All I know is that he's young, he's dumb, and all he wants to do is drugs. He goes over to Jessica's place. Jessica is at the care facility, reading a book to her father and trying to, I guess, readdress the trauma that she had through her father, and trying to, I guess, overcome the anger that she has towards her father from all the trauma that she's experienced. And this kid, I forget his name, and somehow in some way like fucks up. I think he breaks like a vodka or like some sort of liquor bottle, needs to go upstairs, but when he goes upstairs he seems to be interacting with the stuffed doll that the audience has been seeing.
I thought, yeah, I wondered about that, yeah.
Right? So like at first he's hearing the jaunty little tune that Chansey seems to always be playing whenever you pull his string. And then he starts seeing Chansey's string. And then he sees Chauncey, Chauncey under the towel, but then Chauncey suddenly disappears. And then all of a sudden he sees the ring, just like how Woody did with the string. And it's being pulled back to where Chauncey is in this like weird little hallway. Chauncey is covered by Alice's blanket, moving down the hallway because this kid is holding down on the string with a ring on it. He lets go, the bear stops, the bear then continues to move down, but it's under a blanket. When it gets close to the kid, so all of a sudden it's like a scary monster. Mind you, all before this, Alice looks to Chauncey and says, "Oh yeah, maybe you should go eat him because I don't like him either."
You know what's interesting about that? The implication that he had in the bathroom with him chasing that thing. And
he said he was tripping.
Well, not just that. Remember what he says? I know it's you. And he's referring to Alice. So he knew what that bear was.
Yep.
Even before seeing it. So does that mean he saw the bear when he walked into the house then?
I don't know.
Because they replay that scene later of Alice holding him with the bugs before he grabbed the bugs out of her hand and called her a psycho.
Yeah.
So did he see the bear and like we did and everyone else didn't? Or like that is kind of interesting. I didn't think about it like that.
It's a plot hole that I feel like they...
An inconsistency probably.
Inconsistency, plot hole, whatever you may call it. But at the same time, like, it's a little weird because does it mean that those quote-unquote allergy pills really make this kid trip to the point that he actually could see Chauncey? Or was Chauncey actually making himself, like, known to this kid because he really didn't like him? Which one was it? And just how far did he dive into this kid's psyche?
If he really wanted to explain it, yeah.
But moving on from that, the biggest plot twist was that the therapist or the psychiatrist looks at Jessica and says, no, it's all imaginary. You even see it in a video where when just a few minutes earlier, Alice seems to be having this confrontation with Chauncey, but it's not going too well. And when Alice turns towards the camera in the corner of the couch, you see nothing.
That bear ain't there.
Jessica starts having a meltdown. She runs down to the basement, mind you. And this is something that I feel like kind of recaught my attention when we were watching it. Earlier on in the movie, anytime that it seems that Jessica goes to the basement, there's this like weird dark figure standing right behind her. Earlier in the movie, you see it. Second time she goes down to the basement because of this panic attack that she's having, you still see it.
Which isn't Chauncey, by the way. Or at least, maybe it is. But
a humanoid version?
Yeah, because Chauncey, for most of the movie, is the stuffed bear and then turns into like a really big, like scary monster
demonic bear.
Yeah. But the figure that Marva's talking about is not that. So it's...
No. I think if I were to really get technical with it, Chauncey may have three forms: the humanoid, the bear creature thing, and then the spider.
Or the spider, yeah.
Or four, the spider and then the stuffed animal. We don't know what his true form is, but anytime that Jessica's downstairs, there's this black figure, this black shadow. The only reason why I think it's humanoid is because in one of Jessica's drawings when she was younger, you see Chauncey and then you see this like shadow figure, right? Like coming out of it right above it. Like a 5-year-old's little drawing.
And it's always like behind her in the picture, so yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's supposed to be just kind of like one of those... I guess maybe just Chauncey or something.
Yeah, or who knows? Maybe Jessica could see the entity that was controlling Chauncey, and maybe Alice just can't. Like, I don't fucking know.
She was more creative than Alice.
She was, so maybe she was more attuned to that side, if you will. But
yeah, that realm, if you will, or something.
Yeah. But I guess going back onto the point of the subject, like Jessica is panicking, and then all of a sudden, like when Alice is in her room crying and Taylor has finally calmed her down, comes back to see Jessica freaking out. She then Jessica looks at Taylor and says, like, we need to go check on Alice now. They go back to Alice's room. Not even 2 minutes go by and Alice is no longer to be seen.
She's gone, bro.
She's gone. They're running around the block trying to figure out what to do. Mind you, within the first few minutes, the audience is watching Alice put everything on that scavenger hunt list into a bowl and burn it. And all of a sudden, like, blue lights appears, and again, she's gone. Taylor and Jessica are running through the block. They can't find her. All of a sudden, this old lady who used to be Jessica's old babysitter comes up. I think her name's Gloria.
She was in the movie for like 30 seconds earlier talking to Jessica. So
Just about her history and like
this,
before
this
she
is
moved.
where you really get to see her. And I actually have not like a complaint, but I was expecting her to be more creepy.
Yeah.
She kind of came off more quirky than anything.
She came off quirky and she came off comedic.
Yeah, I was expecting a lot, especially since the trailer had that scene of like her watching the house and
That photo in and of itself made her look creepy. Like, I thought it was going to be some old lady with like frizzy ass hair, disjointed dress that's like falling off her shoulders. It's like 2 sizes too big, but she refuses to like
on some it shit, bro.
yeah, essentially. And she refuses to get one that's actually her size. And because the way that the photo that Taylor takes in the beginning of the movie, where she sees like the old lady standing in her windowsill, that's how the old lady looks like. But you come to find out that no, Gloria, the quirky looking grandma who's not really a grandma, was the one who tried to buy the home, not the crazy lady with the oversized dress.
Yeah, I don't know. Very interesting, but
Mm-hmm.
regardless, she came off more quirky than anything. And then her whole, I guess, plan in this is the creature had been talking to her, or the entity had been talking to her, and wanted
Planning together
to get Jessica back into that realm. So she goes and helps Taylor and Jessica find Alice, but in reality, she's actually just trying to get Jessica into that imaginary realm. And eventually, they do when she has to perform the same scavenger hunt. And she goes off on Taylor, bro. Because one of the, I guess, requirements is you need to hurt. And for her to hurt, it wasn't just physical pain. She needed to like hurt really bad. And she goes off on Taylor, which had been kind of like building up this entire time because she's been taking everything that Taylor was saying to her without even like raising her voice towards her.
Maybe batting her eye once or twice, but that's more so in the sense of like the shock that she had. Not
I think more so that's just a disappointment that she just couldn't like really get
through to her, talk
or, like,
to
help
her,
her.
connect with her,
Yeah.
like do anything that she wanted to do.
It wasn't, I
Taylor.
think, anything towards her, like
No,
Taylor. It was like herself. But
yeah.
anyways, after that happens, they're finally able to get into the imaginary world, which finally, this is where we get some decent shots. Because I don't know if you noticed, but this movie didn't have like anything going for it, dude. Like there was really hardly any cool, there wasn't any cool cinematic shots. There was just not too many like different lighting effects. It was just very.
It was a family in the home.
Yeah.
A little girl going around in her home doing shit. So it very much had like home settings and like home shots. I think the only shot prior to the imaginary realm was when the Chauncey was fucking around with that kid. The Molly kid.
And even then it was just like standard, just like
corner
shots. But yeah, like you said, that's like where we got like some interesting lighting and like
they
did like a play where even though it was daylight, they made the hallway look very dark and blue.
Which was really cool.
Maybe a foreshadow to the imaginary world because it was blue.
It was blue. It was like a blue-gray. It was really cool, like seeing the imaginary realm. In all honesty, the way that Gloria had made it seem, I thought it would be depicted more along the lines of like a fairy realm, if you will.
Yeah.
But seeing how the imaginary realm or I guess the realm, not even imaginary
it
realm,
looked like a black and white like checker type of
it's like floor that was on the ceiling though, and like staircases that were going around everywhere, somewhere like between the labyrinth and like Stranger Things, but like more child friendly, if that makes any sense. And Squid Games.
Like a mix of the Further from Insidious and Squid Games. That's probably the best way to like describe it.
I think so, but Further only because of all the fog and the clouds and the color. But Squid Games because of the staircases and like the interlaying rooms. I guess if you were to have like the Emporium from Doctor Strange and like the Further from Insidious and then Stranger Things and the Labyrinth, like all mixed into one, you would get this kind of place. It's cool.
You kind of lost me for a second there, but I get what you mean when I remember what the Emporium is.
Yeah, because like all the doors with all the different effects, the fact that Jessica can lift a painting and then get a flashback of her life and see why her father actually
that was
insane.
The dope stuff.
That was really cool. Like seeing the creativity behind that, it made me kind of think of something similar to like Freddy's Realm.
Yes.
Freddy Krueger's film.
Which I mean, if anyone makes that movie in the future, there you
notes.
go. Yeah.
Take fucking notes. Like I expect something better than this. Not to say like it was bad because I mean Blumhouse does a good job of most things, but overall, I would expect if they were to bring Freddy back for it to be something like this, if not better.
Well, this whole thing leads to like a climactic battle against the bear. They do like a fake out ending where after Alice and Taylor are able to leave and Jessica gets left behind, she has like this, I guess she uses her imagination to create what it would be like to like reconcile with her father and then also have her husband and her kids there with her. And then we find out, no, Chauncey's not going to let her go a second time. And then you have this funny ass scene where Taylor makes it back into the imaginary realm, which I wonder how she even got back in, but makes it back in there, knocks out the creature, the entity. She grabs Jessica, they run off. And this is where you finally see that spider-like entity come out, that humanoid thing or whatever. Simon, I guess, if you want to call him that.
Yeah,
and
you see Chauncey turn into the spider that was haunting Jessica's dreams in the very beginning of the movie.
That comes up. That doesn't really get the job done. They end up finally burning the house. Now, I have an interesting take on this. Much like Night Swim, I thought we were gonna get a depressing ending. I thought Jessica was gonna stay stuck in that realm.
I liked the first ending that they had. The fact that it was a fake out. Jessica made it out, but it wasn't really that she made it out. Taylor and Alice did, but she got left behind because the door closed too quick or she got pulled in. That Taylor and Alice didn't really pull her back in time because I thought it was really cool. I actually started to smile. I was like, oh, damn, like a cool, dope, sad ending. No, she ended up fighting back, and then Taylor showed up, and she actually made it through the portal, and then, well, there was like, I feel like another fake out ending, and then the final one was where Alice, Jessica, and Taylor make it to a hotel. They're gonna go book there, and then they see the stuffed bear sitting on like this chair in the hotel lobby, and they all look at each other and say, all right, let's try somewhere else. And turns out that the stuffed bear, whenever the scene slightly changes, is actually Chauncey, just in a different form.
So that we also witnessed another horror movie that had multiple endings, if you could say that, which was The First Omen. The difference being, though, that on the first or second fake out ending, The First Omen could be considered one of the best horror movies in the last 10 years.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, once you get to like the fifth fake out ending in The First Omen, you start to think like, okay, like let's end this, and that's pretty much the big consensus of that film. Even my friend Mark agrees with that, and I agree with that too. That I feel like once you get to that like final ending, you're like, okay, cool, finally, it's done now. Kind of took like a point or two off.
Mm-hmm.
But with this movie, it was already like at a 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. So doing like 3 fake out endings in the last like 10 minutes was like,
that was a bit much in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like it was unnecessary. We really didn't need that many fake out endings.
If it had ended on a depressing note like Night Swim, where the family does lose a member, I thought that would have been
I feel like
cool.
I would have liked it more.
Yeah. It would have put it at a solid like 6.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, 6.5. I want to say 7. Just because again, I don't really see sad horror movies anymore. I see more like cliffhangers for the viewer to interpret,
or a possible sequel for the studio.
Essentially. But I mean, like, but if somebody wants to be more positive, they can create a more positive ending in their head, or the studio wants to keep it positive, they can keep it positive. But I mean, overall, I liked it. I've truly enjoyed the fact that Jessica may be stuck there, that Chauncey won, that Chauncey finally got the person who had so much imagination that I could feed him for lifetimes.
So on Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it a 24%, audience gave it a 56%.
I would say audience is accurate.
Accurate, like 5 out of 10?
Yeah, 5, 6 out of 10, depending on how you want to interpret it, 5 or 6. I only give it a 6 because I feel like the creativity of the imaginary realm is what got me.
Like the last,
yeah.
I don't even want to say that, like the last third act. I think like half of the third act is probably where you see that.
Yeah. The multiple endings, I think, brought it down significantly again, because it was starting to slowly climb up. If it had the sad ending, I would have given it like a 7 or an 8, like full transparency, full honesty. But because it had multiple endings, and because of the fact that they didn't use the sad ending that felt so good,
I think I'm gonna settle on a 5.
5, 6.
Yeah.
Just
because of the lack of cinematic shots, like it's when you're in this realm competing with like horror movies of the caliber that we've been at for the last like 3 years, I feel like you have to bring just a little bit more to the table. Even like the seating for it being as what it was, I still thought like looked good.
Like, if this came out 3 years ago or even 4 years ago, it probably would have scored a whole lot higher for you and me. I'm not gonna lie.
But like pre 2022
Definitely.
probably.
But because of the fact that horror films have been doing so well and people have been so out of the box with it, and this felt so much in the box, if you will, I feel like that in and of itself just brought it down.
Yeah. But let us know what you think of Imaginary if you've seen it yet. If you haven't seen it yet, we don't really suggest you spend money on it. If you want to wait for streaming, that's probably our best bet. I mean,
who knows? You guys may like it.
Yeah, go check out the trailers and see if you like it for yourselves. If it's something you want to get into. But Immaculate will probably be next week. So I'll probably rent that this weekend and we'll cook that episode up and we'll get that going for you guys. But again, let us know what you thought of Imaginary. Go check out our quick impressions of the seeding over on our TikTok and Instagram. Links will be down below in the description. And thank you for listening as always.